right, today we're starting to talk about the quadratic formula. And so we're going to start out just by a little bit of review. To solve a quadratic equation, what are we looking for? So why are we doing this? We're looking for what? Think about it. Hopefully you said we are looking for zeros or the x-intercepts or roots, we could call them. But those are the things that we're looking for. Roots, zeros, x-intercepts, all of those things. That's why we're solving. What are the three methods we can use to do this? We could graph it. We could use the square root property, or we could factor. So we are not going to spend much time graphing, but we did talk about when we factor and we go to graph, the roots are from those factors. Where it crosses the x-intercept, we get that from factoring, right? But we could put a rough graph of what it looks like. Square root property. So if we have like x squared minus 4, and we went to solve it, we'd have x squared minus 4 equals 0, x squared equals 4, and then we know we have, if x squared is 4, we've just square root both sides, and when we do that, we generate two answers. X is plus n minus 2. So because 2 times 2 equals 4, but also negative 2 times negative 2 equals 4. So we have both of those answers when we use the square root property, or factoring like we did previously, all last chapter almost, where we'd have like y equals x squared minus 7x. I'm just thinking one off in my head. So minus 7x minus 8, where we could factor that into x minus 8 and x plus 1. Because this is 1x, this is negative 8x, so together they make that negative 7x. And then I would set each factor equal to 0 and solve it. So x would equal 8 and negative 1. So those are the three ways that we have learned to factor, or to solve, quadratics so far. Today we're going to talk about solving using a quadratic formula. What is a quadratic formula? It's opposite of b, so you should fill this in. And what does opposite mean? This just means change the sign on your b. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. Remember, anytime you put a number in, though, we're putting it in parentheses. Minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So this method always works. It's tedious to do sometimes when we could do something quicker, but it always works. So I want you to follow this link, and I'm pretty sure it just has somebody singing the quadratic formula song to you, because there is a song that we all know, It Goes to Pop Goes the Weasel, to memorize this equation. So you should listen to that link and try to memorize this equation. All right, finding the zeros using the quadratic formula. So step 1 is get the equation in the right format. What does that mean? We have to move everything to one side. So we can set it equal to 0. Step 2, label the A's, the B's, and the C's. Step 3, plug it into the equation. So if we're going to do this, x squared minus 8, I'm just going to rewrite it. And then it was equals 2x. So step 1, get it in the right format, move everything to one side. Well, I will subtract this x to get everything on one side. Remember, x squared doesn't combine with x. So x squared just stays x squared. Negative 8 doesn't combine with x. So I'm going to write it in standard form. X squared would be first, minus x would be next, minus 8 equals 0. And the generic formula for a quadratic is, remember, ax squared plus bx plus c, where these a's, b's, and c's are just the numbers. In a and b's case, the numbers that are with those x squareds and x's. So if I'm going to label my a, b's, and c's, a in this case would be 1. My b is going to be -1. And my c will be -8. So a's, b's, and c's. I think we actually do this on the next page, so let's go over here. So this is the same formula. Sorry, I didn't look ahead. So we're going to have, we already said subtract. Oh, wait, is this the same? Yes, because I forgot to make that a 2. So this is the same one. We're just going to go over here and do it. So x squared, I would have subtracted that 2x, sorry, minus 8 equals 0. Label my a's, my b's, my c's. A will be 1, b is -2, c is -8. So ignore what we did on the other page. I obviously wrote the b part wrong anyway. So this is labeling my a's, b's, c's. So negative b. Remember I wrote that opposite sign. What's the sign of our b right now? Hopefully you said negative. And what I mean the opposite sign is if we fill that in, we'd have x equals negative. If I put that in, -2, if you type in your calculator, -2, it's going to say is +2. So when I say take the opposite sign, that's y. So this is going to be 2 plus minus the square root of b squared. Again, put it in parentheses. Minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. 2 times a, which is 1. All right, so I use my calculator to simplify what's under the radical, and I don't use the radical button. So I'm going to say x equals 2 plus minus square root. I'm just going to plug in -2 squared minus 4 times 1 times -8 to find out what should be under my radical. And if I do that, I believe I get 36. And it would all be over 2 times 1, which is 2. All right, we probably all know the square root of 36. If you don't, you can hit the square root button. It's just sometimes they are decimals and I want us to show the work. So we get x equals 2 plus or minus, hopefully you know the square root of 36, is 6 over 2. Now when I look at this, I could simplify here because these are all even numbers. I could say it was 1 plus or minus 3 if I divided everything by 2, which 1 plus 3 is 4. 1 minus 3 is -2. So my x would equal 4 and -2. Now I could have, if I didn't think of, so I'm going to go this way. If I didn't think of simplifying there, I would just do 2 plus 6 divided by 2. 2 plus 6 is 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And I would have done 2 minus 6 over 2. 2 minus 6 is -4 divided by 2, which is -2. So either way, you're going to get the same answer if you simplify ahead of time or not. But the answers for that are 4 and -2. Now, if you look at that, could we have factored this and gotten those answers? Yes. But this also works, and it works every time. All right, so if my smartboard keeps working here. All right, your turn. You go ahead and put me on pause. You try this. You have to show your work. When you come back, will have the answer at the bottom, but you need to show the work using the quadratic formula. So pause me and do the work. All right, hopefully you labeled your A's, B's, and C's. You plugged it into the quadratic formula, and you got x equals 7 and x equals -3. Again, you need to show the quadratic formula worked out for your note check. All right, sometimes you don't get nice whole numbers, so make sure to follow the directions. Like in this case, it says solve and round your answers to the nearest hundredth, because we're not going to get a nice, beautiful answer. All right, so is this in the right format? Step 1, yes, everything's on one side of the equation. Step 2, label my A's, B's, and C's. A is 1, B is 8, C is 11. Step 3, plug it into the quadratic formula. Opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. When I simplify that, go ahead and plug what's under the radical into your calculator and see what you get. You should get negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 20 over 2. And when you plug that into your calculator, you're going to get negative 8. If you do the square root of 20, it's like 4.472 dot, 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 dot. So we're going to do negative 8 plus the square root of 20, or that 4.472 over 2. And then you should also have negative 8 minus 4.472 dot, 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 all over 2. And when you do that, you get for the answers negative x equals negative 1.76, since it says around to the nearest hundredth, and x equals negative 6.24. All right. Again, this one is going to give you decimals. I want you to try it on your own. Put me on pause and then come back and check your answer when you are done. All right, so first of all, you had to rearrange your equation. So get it all on one side. Label your A's, B's, and C's. Plug it in to the equation. You should have got negative 5 plus minus square root of 73 over 6. When I plug those two numbers in, I get x equals negative 2.26 and 0.59. Okay, how many possible answers do you think we can get using the quadratic formula? So let's try a couple problems and find out. All right, we have 9x squared plus 12x plus 4. Actually, go back to that one and guess. How many do you think we can get using the quadratic formula? And then we're going to try a few. So if we look at this one, again, everything's on the right side. So my A is 9, B is 12, C is 4. Opposite of B, plus minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Let's see, that'd be 144 minus 144. So I get negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 18. Well, the square root of 0 is just 0, so I don't have to do plus and minus it because it would be the same. So you just have negative 12 over 18, which reduces to be negative 2 over 3. So in this case, we just have one answer. So we can have one answer. We know we can have two. We've already had some with 2. Let's do this one. It's in the right form. A is 1, B is negative 2, and C is 3. Opposite of B, negative negative 2 is 2, plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times, A, which is 1, times C, which is 3, all over 2A. All right, that would be 2 plus or minus square root. Negative 2 squared is 4, because negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, minus 4 times 1 times 3, which is 12 over 2. So when I simplify what's under the radical, I get 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 8. Hopefully you remember That's not possible because I can't have a number times itself that equals a negative number. Because if I have, well, first of all, negative 8 doesn't have a perfect square. But if you have a negative times a negative gives you a positive, so a negative number times itself will give you a positive, and a positive times a positive gives you a positive. And since the square root is what number times itself, we can't do this. So this is 0 solutions. So how many solutions can we have? We can have 0, 1, or 2, just like when we solved it by factoring. All right, thanks very much. See you tomorrow.